Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox, where we talk about all things Xbox from the original to the Series X, and today we are talking about Driv3r, or as it looks on the front of the game cover, Driv3r. Released June 24th, 2004 on PS2 and Xbox. It was later released on mobile, Game Boy Advance, and PC. All footage today was captured off of the original Xbox version of the game. And unfortunately, this game is not backwards compatible on the series consoles or the 360. Driv3r was published by Atari and developed by Reflections Interactive. It is the third game in the Driver series, with the first two being absolute PlayStation staples. The first one being a rental classic for me personally, all involving an undercover cop who uses cars to take down criminals. Inspired by movie car chases, those games brought something fresh and unique to that era of gaming, even to the point that the second one allowed you to leave the car and explore an open 3D world before Grand Theft Auto 3 would do it. But after a 4-year series hiatus, what was going to happen to the Driver franchise now that multiple GTA games have released to critical and commercial success? It definitely tried its best to connect itself and boost itself with a $34 million budget if you include marketing. I remember seeing ads for this game plastered everywhere and being excited for this one. The cover looked like a GTA game, which in the early 2000s for any kid was a great thing. I remember walking into Blockbuster and seeing copies on the shelf for rental, and you know what? I got it. And you know what? I hated it. Couldn't stand it. I returned it very soon and never looked back. Until now. And this channel has me revisiting games, and I wanted to see if this was as bad as I had remembered. So let's take this journey together. And if you enjoy this video as we go along, be sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. In Driv3r, you play as John Tanner, an undercover agent who's trying to uncover a car smuggling ring. It may seem simple, but there's loads of characters, 3 different countries, and twists and turns along the way. If there is one positive I can take away from this game, it's the plot. I won't try to make complete sense out of it. Sometimes it's honestly nonsensical, but it captures the action movie style of the late 2000s perfectly. Specifically the works of Michael Mann with Collateral and Miami Vice. Surprisingly, both of which had not been released before this game. So I don't know, but this game had some sort of finger on the pulse. Its cutscenes and story layouts are so insanely fast and insanely stylish. I compared it a lot to the 2006 Miami Vice movie. It's full of shadows, interesting stylish looks, but also a bizarre crime story that feels like a modern noir. I'm not sure if it's entirely intentional, but I'm a man who loves style. Style over substance is not something that bothers me if the style is beautiful, and I hate to say it, but style here is unmatched at the time. It feels cinematic, and I would be willing to sit back with this plot for 2 hours in a theater if it looked and felt this cool. The voice cast bolsters this with Michael Madsen, Ving Rhames, Michelle Rodriguez, and even Iggy Pop showing up. It has a Hollywood edge that I really enjoyed. I just wish the cool style and story had something good to pair it with. But unfortunately, I can't say I really enjoyed the rest of my experience. One of the first things you're going to notice when this game starts off is that it takes a lot of notes from Driver 2, where you have free control outside of your vehicles. Yet here you have more control over the character in the 3D space. You can shoot your weapons, jump, and hop into vehicles. Yet it all seems off. The controls of movement in this game are extremely stiff. Moving with the sticks and camera never seem to move the way you would like it to. It's almost like there's a slight delay, making aiming and running a chore to work through. You may ask why I'm complaining about movement in a driving game, and that's because there's a lot of levels that don't involve driving. In a game about cars, you will find yourself out just shooting bad guys, and it all feels awful to play. Aiming is never fun, and enemies even on the lower difficulty will deplete all of your health extremely fast. It's something you can get used to as the game rolls on, but honestly I never got rid of that nagging feeling of always just feeling a little bit off to play. Driving feels pretty good though once you get used to it. Turns feel heavy and each car has their own feel to it. They at least put a good amount of focus in how the cars drive and feel. There's some really solid missions in the game where you chase down enemies with passengers shooting at the passing cars. They all feel fast and frantic, all the while dodging the traffic feels great. These missions still are tough with little margin for error, but here, unlike the shooting, it feels like it's your fault rather than garbage controls. I just wish there were way more driving missions than shooting ones, and then we might actually have something totally fun and not just partially. The game also offers various other modes to play. It offers a free roam where you can just drive around the city and do nothing. This is fine for a small amount of time but lacks a lot of substance. Other than that, you get a small selection of driving minigames such as races. These are alright, but once again, there's not a lot of meat to it. These are good building block missions for what the game should have been, but I seriously think the focus went too hard into cloning Grand Theft Auto instead of just doing a hardcore car chase driving game. And I can't believe this game cost $17 million for production alone, because graphically, this game stinks. Cars look good, but the city itself is awful to drive in. I don't even think the buildings look all that bad, but the pop in here is atrocious. Driving through the city is a chore whenever buildings just pop out in front of you when they are barely far away. The city map should have been populated, but it's lacking people, buildings, and cars. It's like the game just can't render anything, and I get graphically it might be fine, but I would rather have a consistently displayed city rather than having to wait for things to load in when they're right in front of you. The game's cities get better when you go to France and Istanbul. Those have a lot more character and tight spaces, so pop-in is not as prevalent. But I still found that people and cars just randomly appeared out of nowhere, and it feels awful to play. Miami itself should have been a cool city to drive in, but it becomes a mess of buildings halfway loaded in and empty streets. The cities just feel unlived in and lifeless. Looking at this game is bad, and I can't give it leeway because it's such a huge production and we got something poorly put together, and I honestly find it baffling. They at least put some money into a decent licensed soundtrack. Not a lot of notable music, but I think each city has their own set vibe of music to it, and I think that adds to the game's world building. The sound though, I didn't think anything stood out or was noticeable, so it gets a pass. The voice work is really cool though. We have an all-star cast here, and I think they all bring good A-games. Adding some kind of Hollywood edge to the game that Driv3r obviously was trying to grasp at. Driv3r, if you can't tell, was not an enjoyable experience for me. Sure, driving feels good, but it's stuck in a game that lacks driving and focuses on gunplay instead, and the gunplay is surprisingly awful to control. Couple this with constant pop-in, dead cities, and bugs all over the place. It's just a really awful experience and one I can't recommend. I know this game has its defenders, and more power to you if you enjoy it, but for me, I found it way too messy to have any fun with. And on my original Xbox ranking list, Driv3r is going to go near the bottom at number 45. I put it between both Dangerous Hunts game. It's better than the first Dangerous Hunts, at least it's playable, but Dangerous Hunts 2 is just a little bit better because I think I just got a little bit more fun out of it, but we are at the bottom end of the list. But that wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know below what you want me to play next. But I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.